Hello, everyone, and welcome to Atp Live Monday. We're going to start on the top of the hour. Well, while we're waiting to start, I just want us to start to share the videos and the link. I'll also do the same here. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Atp Live Monday. And I'm just going to share the link.
Also the multiplication when you go to a different page. Now don't take them out. Don't. It's to mark the page, or else you'll be busy finding those pages.
Welcome, everyone. Let's just share the link. Okay, so welcome to ATP Live Monday. This is a program where you get to ask any questions that you have about the health of your children in the next 1 hour, and then we will try and answer them. Um, Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had a nice time with Dr. Rotimi last week. I was unavoidably absent. And last week up to now is still the immunization week. So Dr. Rotimi did a good job reminding us about immunization. So if you still have any question on immunization, you're welcome to ask. It was also the World Malaria Day on Thursday, the 25th. So if you also have any questions still on malaria, you're welcome to ask as well. So we're rounding up April with malaria and immunization. But welcome to ask any question whatsoever that you may have about the health of your children. All right, welcome for those on Instagram. You're welcome. For those on Facebook, you can start to drop your questions now. So remember, when you're asking your question, please start with the age of the child. Don't leave your questions hanging. We need to know the age of the child first. And if you're asking about weight and stuff like that, please give us facts. Give us facts like this is the current weight, this was the birth weight, so we have an idea. And try and keep the questions short and straightforward to the point. Um, we also plead your indulgence not to just give information without asking very specific questions. So these are just like housekeeping announcements. All right, so welcome to ATP Live Monday. I am Gbemisola Boyede, and I'm a pediatrician, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about the health of your children in the next 1 hour. Obviously, if you still have any questions afterwards, you're welcome to join us on our Facebook group, and you can ask your questions on our Facebook group. If you're asking on Instagram and YouTube, just post your question directly under the comments section. But if you're asking your questions from Facebook page, you can just ask your question on our page. But if you are asking your question on our groups, you may have to make sure you click on the video so that your questions um, will be visible to us. So if not, we will not be able to see your questions. So right now I can't see any question yet on Facebook. So please drop your questions. At least comment. Let me know that you can see me and you can hear me. So feel free to drop your questions now. Okay. Instagram as well. I can't see any questions, so feel free to drop your questions. So okay, so I think I'm done with all the sharing and the pinning and all those usual things we do at the beginning. So let me welcome you once again to Ask the Pediatrician Live Monday, ATP Live Monday, where we get to ask and answer questions that you may have about the health of your children. We have just an hour to do that, so please start to drop your questions now so that we can answer them in the next 60 minutes before we go off the air. However, if you still have any questions after the live session, you're welcome to post your questions on our Facebook group. We are there 24/7. Mondays to Saturdays, except on Sundays. So you are welcome to post your questions there, and I will try our best to answer your questions as soon as we can. Okay, I have a couple of questions already on Instagram, and I'm just going to go right ahead and answer them. Hara Setina. Okay, say hello, ma. My daughter is 3 years old and has developmental delay, not talking yet, and the likes of it. We live in the UK. Okay. And speech therapy is currently going on. I was advised to bring her to Nigeria. Please, ma, will that help in any way by bringing her to Nigeria? Okay, Arasetina, I don't know whether you're still there. That's an interesting question. I'm not really sure there's any difference that you're going to get by taking a child to Nigeria, unless you are permanently relocating to Nigeria. But if you are going to be living in the UK, I mean, there's no magic that is going to happen in Nigeria if you just go there for a couple of days or months. I really would think it's better to leave your child in the UK, and I think your child has better support in the UK in terms of therapists and all that. Of course, the challenge with the UK health system is if you are doing NHS, there's a queue, you have to wait for turns. Whereas in Nigeria, if you're doing private, obviously there's nothing in the public health system in Nigeria is going to be private, then you're going to be paying, and so maybe you can get services faster. But that would be very expensive in the long term as well. In the UK, you can also pay privately if you're able to afford it as well. So, but I think what really matters in terms of your child is the kind of support the child needs and the kind of diagnosis the child has and the availability of therapists. So I'm not really sure whether there's any extra advantage to going to Nigeria just because of the diagnosis. I really think you should just continue with the therapies you're already getting. But that's just my personal opinion. But because there may be other factors that you have not told us about that may be influencing your decision about going back to Nigeria. Maybe you have better support, family and all that there. I don't know. But if you are just asking purely because your child has a developmental delay, your child is having therapies, and you want to go to Nigeria just purely from therapy point of view, then I'm not going to advise that. I'd rather say you can actually stay where you are. And I think having worked on both sides of the divide, I think you will likely get better quality or more access to people who are really well trained and experienced in the UK compared to Nigeria. We have people in Nigeria as well, but there are not as many, and there are few. And depending on which part of Nigeria, definitely it has to be in the city. So you're talking of Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. You can't go to any other place in Nigeria. You're not even going to get anything at all. So you also have to bear that in mind. But again, it is your decision. So Harasetina, I'm not sure whether you got that because I'm not sure whether you're still, if you are, you can let me know. And if there's any other additional information that you want to give that may influence your decision, feel free to ask as well. All right, I'm going to go to Facebook now. I got a question from Omeke Abigail. I say good evening, ma. What makes a baby to pass smelly gas? And how can I help my 6 weeks baby to poo? He has not poo since 4 days. Okay, everybody pass gas, everybody farts, including you, and it is always smelly. So there's really nothing unusual about a baby passing smelly gas as well. So that is absolutely normal. Just like adults also pass gas. So, and I'm not sure there's anybody that pass gas or farts that it doesn't smell. So I'm not sure why you are worried about the baby passing it and why that should be a concern, because it's something absolutely normal for everybody, including you. So I don't think that is something you want to worry about. That's number one. Then the second part of your question, depending on what you're feeding your babies on exclusive breastfeeding do not have to pass stools every day. So babies on exclusive breastfeeding may go for days. In fact, they can go up to 2 weeks without passing stool, because most of the breast milk is pre-digested. So most of the time there's really nothing left. Most of it is absorbed. So, and it's not a problem. It is not constipation, because a lot of mothers think that is constipation. That is not constipation. So because when the babies eventually will pass their stools, the stools will be normal stools. It may be thick, but it will still be soft. So it is not going to be hard stool. So that is normal for babies on exclusive breastfeeding, and you don't need to do anything. Please do not give them water. Do not give them anything. Do not give them any drugs. Just keep breastfeeding the babies exclusively. So if you are doing exclusive breastfeeding, okay, because you didn't really say that babies on formula, on the other hand, may be prone to constipation. And so for them, if you're doing formula feeding and your baby is not passing stool, actually most of them tend to pass stools and heavy bulky stools. So if they're not passing stools, then it is most likely constipation. And that is why babies on formula, the formula makers always recommend that you give them plain water, because there's so much, and you have to make sure you're mixing it according to what is recommended, the amount of scoops to amount of water. It is now, some others don't even read those instructions. They just put the scoops in the water as the spirit leads them. No, there's an amount of scoop that goes to an amount of water. For example, some of the formula will say 1 scoop to 30 mils of water. Some will say 1 scoop to 60 mil of water. So you have to follow that instruction. And there may be also be need for you to give plain water for formula fed babies, so that's to avoid constipation. So that is that. And those are the risks of formula feeding and all that, which I'm not going to go into. But babies on exclusive breastfeeding, there's nothing to worry about, because breast milk is 70% water. And but they may not pass all their stools every day, but it is also perfectly normal, as long as whenever they eventually pass the stool, it will be soft or thick pasty, but it won't be hard. So I hope that is helpful for Abigail. Just let me know whether you have any further clarification. I'm checking on Instagram. I don't think. Okay, Rasetina. Okay, you say you're still here. Good. I hope you got the answer to your question. Just let me know whether you're happy. But like I said, there are maybe other factors which is not clear in your question. But if it's just purely for therapy, you don't need to go anywhere. Just stick and continue with the therapies for your child. All right. Okay. I don't have any questions still. So welcome for those who are just joining us. You're welcome. You're welcome. Feel free to ask your questions, any question you have about the health of your children in the next 1 hour, and we will try and answer them. And I just want to remind us, this is immunization week, and if you have not if your child has not yet taken the immunization, please kindly take them for the immunization. Immunization is one of the most successful public health campaigns. This is one way by which we have reduced deaths of children, globally, all over the world. So a lot of children today are walking because they got polio vaccines. In those days, I'm sure most of us know people who could not walk well, who are paralyzed. Some of them had polio as a child, but these days we are almost at the verge of kicking polio completely out of the entire world. So please ensure that our children take immunization. So this is just one of the success stories of immunization. I'm sure some of us, if you ask your parent, they used to talk about smallpox, but now nobody talk about smallpox anymore because we're able to get vaccine and be able to kick it out. Unfortunately, in countries like Europe, in Europe, for example, in the UK, for example, right now we are having issues of measles outbreak, and that's because people are becoming woke, and some people are beginning to talk about not taking immunization, and these are things that don't happen in such developed countries, but now they are also beginning to have emergence and re-emergence of some of these infectious diseases, and now all the children are being taken again for immunization. So that's to tell us that the fact that things get better does not mean those immunizations were not necessary anymore or they are not important. So all our children should be immunized. Please check your immunization card. Please put it in your phone. Make sure you put reminders. And if, for example, you miss immunization for one reason or the other, that is not the end of the world. You can always go back and take those vaccines again. We call them catch up immunization. So you can take your child back and then they will be able to give the immunization again. So please let us all ensure that our children are fully immunized. And I think that is the message of the immunization week, is to remind us. And for those of us in Nigeria, just to also remind us that we have increased the immunization. When we started ATP, there was a time that pneumococcal vaccine was not part of the national immunization schedule, and people have to pay for it. We used to pay for Prevena and all that, but now it is part of the free immunization we give. So also there was a time we don't have human papilloma virus vaccine, HPV, which protect against HPV infection, which protect against cervical cancer in future. Now HPV has now been introduced into the Nigerian immunization schedule. So immunization does not end at 15 months anymore. So HPV is being given around 9 years now. So please let's ensure that our girls especially, they go for the HPV vaccine so that they'll be protected against cervical cancer in future. All right, let's continue. I got a question from Glory Joseph. You say my baby calf sometimes swell and it hurts. So please always start with the age of the child. It is so important to know the age of the child. So my baby calf, how old is this baby? It's swell and it's hot, and this happens anytime it's sleeping or relaxing. That's a very unusual thing for to happen to any child anyway. But you've not even told us the age of your child. I really need that information to be able to give you a context. So the child's calf, if I understood your question, I hope that is what you're trying to write. I'm not sure whether that spelling is correct, so I'm not sure. So please, can you please include the age of your child and be very specific about which part of the body is swelling? Okay, because you wrote calf and I'm wondering what is calf. So your baby is 2 months old. So which part of the baby is swelling? Because anyway, no part of any child's body should be swelling and be painful. And uh okay, Glory Joseph, I'm still not clear. Yeah, the knees. Okay, the knees. So that is not normal for your child's oh, okay. So your child's leg basically, so to be swelling and to be painful, that is not normal. And what interests me is that you say it will get better, is sleeping and or relaxing. So does it get better or does it keep on swelling and all that? Anyway, you really need to take this child to the hospital. Number one, for a 2 months old, we don't expect a 2 months old to be having swelling of any part of the body, definitely not the legs. So that's number one. Two, and the fact that it's painful and all that is also worrisome. And for a 2 months old, that is definitely something wrong somewhere. So I'm going to recommend that this child has to be taken to the hospital to see any of the pediatricians, and then they can do a physical examination and then they will be able to tell you what is wrong. But in the interim, make sure that there's nothing you're wearing or above the like your nappies, for example, that is not too tight, or anything around the ankles or socks, anything that could be obstructing the flow of blood, so blood has to flow freely into the child's all over the body. So make sure there's nothing that is obstructing flow of blood, maybe wearing tight clothes or socks or whatever you put on the child. Just make sure there's nothing like that. But it's really not normal for the child's legs to be swelling, whether intermittently or all the time. That is not normal at all. All right, I got a question from Chinaza Hadaize. Good evening. My baby of 1 month, 2 weeks since today has not poo. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I think I just answered that question also for the other mom that asked. It is perfectly normal for babies on exclusive breastfeeding not to pass stools every day. They may go up to 2 weeks without passing stool, and that is absolutely normal. It's not compulsory that they have to pass stools every day, okay? So just keep breastfeeding your baby exclusively. You don't need to give anything. You don't need to give any drugs. You don't need to give any fruits. You don't need to give any water. You don't need to give anything. Just keep breastfeeding that baby exclusively, and that's all you need to do. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Um, Vicky. And yeah, hello, doc. What can cause a child to cry at night at certain intervals in his sleep? There are many reasons why children can cry at night, and I think the most common one is that children remembers what happened during the day. So if the child has played and cried during the day, then they will dream about that in the night, and then they will cry from that. So it is there are two phases of sleep. We have what we call the rapid eye movement phase of sleep, REM sleep, and we have the deep sleep, non-rapid eye movement phase of sleep. So during the rapid eye movement phase of sleep, that is when we dream, and that is when people are likely to wake up. It's as if they are almost waking up from sleep. They will start moving and all that. So during that period, people, even children, they relieve what has happened during the day. So if a child has cried and cried during the day, then they will dream about it and they can cry. So that is just normal. It's not something is wrong with the child. So that is first. Then number two, some children can cry depending on the age of the child, because you've not given us any age of this particular child. Always put the age of your child. Okay, so it's 15 months. So some children can also have what we call night terrors. No, is night terror is almost like nightmares, okay? But the difference is that in night terrors, the children don't remember what happened. They don't. They can actually physically get up and do so many things and all that. So they can have that around this age. But it's something they outgrow. It's nothing to worry about, and children can cry from that. Some children can also have convulsions in the sleep, and they will shake, and sometimes at the end of it they can cry. So also other things can make a child uncomfortable. They can be bitten by mosquito or by insect. They could be having wet nappies and all those things. So anything. So it doesn't really. The most important thing to figure out which one is going on here. Is the child wet? Is the child, having like something is biting the child and all that? The child very hot or too cold? You first sort out those common stuff first. And like I said, if it's something that has happened during the day, then the child can sleep, can relieve the events, and they can cry. So I know mothers always say, oh, maybe something is happening to the child, maybe somebody is attacking the child. We tend to go spiritual and all those things. Most of the time, there's something spiritual whatsoever. It is absolutely just a normal phenomenon for children sometimes to go through that phase. So just try and figure out which one is going with the child, and then you deal with it. Okay. And if his child is waking, if like this occurs every 15 to 20 minutes, then there must be something going on. If the thing is happening again and again, you have to figure out what is it. Is this child wet? For example, if your child is wet, the nappy is so wet and dirty, or then they to make them uncomfortable, and they will just keep crying until you change the nappy, for example. If the room is too hot, or if something is biting the child, you have to figure it out. Usually for those night terrors or things like that, it just happened once and that is it. It's not something that should keep going on for every 15 to 20 minutes. So that one, there will be something going on that you have not addressed. So you may want to pay attention to that. And also make sure that the child is not having any seizure, like checking and all that. Even then, I don't expect that to also keep on happening for too long. So if you're not still sure at the end of the day what it is, it's okay to also see a pediatrician for proper evaluation. All right. Islamia say, what could be the reason a baby crosses his leg? Please always put the age of a child in every question. The questions have to have context, so anybody can cross their leg in their sleep. It's to say you can voluntarily put your legs together and cross it. There's nothing wrong with that. So but you need to put the age of the child so we know whether is this something the child can do at that age and all that. And so position in sleep is not really an issue, because when you're sleeping you can be in any position. I think we are more worried what position the child assume when the child is fully awake and conscious and all that. So if a child is conscious and they're crossing their legs, especially for children who cannot voluntarily do that, children below the age of 1 or 2, and it's really when you try to separate the leg, it's so stiff and you can't even uncross the legs, then that is when it will be an issue or something we should worry about. But in a child who is sleeping, you cannot necessarily um uh, talk about the position, because you can always assume any position in your sleep because you are not conscious of what is going on around. But if you worry about crossing, number one, we need the age of this child. Number two, we need to know what the child does when the child is awake. And number three, when you try to separate the legs, how is it safe? Is it difficult to separate or not? I think that is what is important. All right. Okay, you said the child is 10 months old. All right. So 10 months old, it's not an issue, but when you uncross the leg, that is what matters. And are there other issues with that child's development? So just an isolated thing does not really tell us much. Is the context. What are the other issues going on with that child? Is it the same child who is not able to sit independently, or who is not yet crawling, who also has other issues, or what has happened during the birth delivery of that child? So we need the context of it. Just one observation alone does not really tell us anything about the child. All right. Let me go to the next question. Akinrisola Molayo Damilola. He said, good evening, ma'am. My baby is 3 months. I noticed mucus in his pool since last week. Okay, so when you're asking a question about pools and stools, always tell us how you're feeding your child. That is the most important information about a child stool, because it is what goes in and that what comes out. So a lot of people have asked questions today about the baby stool, whether the frequency or whether it's the texture or what is inside. The most important information the pediatrician wants to know is what is the child feeding on. Okay, so like you're 3 months old, we expect your baby to be on breast milk only. Please don't give water, don't give drugs. Some of these things that we give to the children can affect their stools, or even if you are also taking drugs yourself, because there are drugs you cannot take when you're breastfeeding, because those things goes into the breast milk and they can be passed to the baby, and what the baby takes in will determine what comes out in the stool. So we need that information first. That's number one. But we recommend that you do breastfeed your baby exclusively and nothing else. Okay, you say you are giving formula and milk, breast milk. So we would recommend that you breastfeed your baby only, no formula, no water, because some of those things can affect the baby's stools as well. So mucus most time is formula on its own. Some does not really cause mucus in the stool, but if you're also giving other drugs, some of us, for example, you give all these multivitamins and all that. Some of them can make the child's stools to be mucoid. All right. So, but I think what we worry most is if there is also blood with the mucus. Okay, mucus on its own is not an issue, but if there's blood, or if the child is only passing mucus without any other thing else, just mucus, no mix with stool, then that will also be an issue as well. So those are the things that can be affecting your baby's stool. So if you're worried about it, then I would recommend that you just stop all the things you're giving and just give only breast milk only. Okay. All right. I think I have one question on Instagram. Aracetina. Okay, you're asking how can we have a one-to-one discussion with ATP? Okay, so if you that I guess you meant like a private consultation, then you have to send us a message on our WhatsApp number. I think I can write it for you. Um, and then we can have that conversation on our WhatsApp with any of our professionals. So I think I've written the number, or if you just check on our group, some of those information are available on our groups. All right. So may I say thank you. Maybe it's achieving all milestones. Okay, maybe it's achieving all milestones. I'm not going to worry about crossing the legs, but I will say just uncross the leg first. That is the most important. If you uncross the leg and it is just a temporary position, then the baby's leg will be uncrossed. But if it's a child who has problems, like maybe a child who is developing cerebral palsy, because I know that is maybe that's what you're thinking about. So some of you may have seen that on our groups, that one of the red flag for cerebral palsy is that the children tend to what we call scissoring of their legs. They cross their legs, and it's not just that they cross it; it will be so stiff. It will be very stiff, and when they cross the leg in that position, when you try to uncross it, you won't be able to do it easily. It will be so stiff. So that is when we worry, and that is a sign of a child who may end up developing cerebral palsy. But if your child just puts their legs like that and you remove it and the legs is fine, it's not hard, it's not stiff, and the child doesn't necessarily go back into that crossing over, then it's not going to be something we are going to worry about. Um, Good evening, Sammy Obimba. My baby will be 7 months on the 3rd of next month. Okay, your baby is not yet 7 months and has not started crawling. Number one, you really need to know what is normal milestones. Okay, number one, your baby is not even 7 months. All right, and then crawling is not even a milestone of 7 month old. Crawling is usually averagely at 9 months. Okay, so a lot of mothers ask us this kind of questions, and it's just unnecessary anxiety. You need to know what is normal first before you know what is not normal, so that you don't start to panic and worry ahead. So crawling is usually at 9 months averagely. That is number one. Number two, not all babies crawl. Some babies never crawl. Crawling is actually one of the milestones we really don't worry about, because some babies don't even do it. Some babies just skip this crawling and go on to standing and walking straight away. And some babies, instead of crawling on their hands and their knees, they actually bottom shuffle. So they move with their bum. They don't crawl on their hands and feet. They move with their bottom. So some babies are like that. So there's no reason for you to worry. But crawling is averagely a 9 months old skills. If you want to know more about normal milestones, you can check our website www.askthepediatricians.com, and we have an article on is your child development on course. Is your child development on course? So there we have put like a list of when you should worry about your child's development, because even when we say crawling is 9 months, that is just average. So when we say something is average, it means some people will do it at that time, majority of people will do it at that time, but some will do it earlier and some will do it later. It's just like height. It's um just like having money too. So not everybody will have the same amount of money at the same time. So some people will do it faster. So it doesn't mean those who don't do it faster are abnormal. It doesn't mean those who do it later are abnormal. It's just a range. So most of those milestones are a range. They are achieved at different time. So, but there's a time that will come, what we call the cutoff age or the limiting age, that as doctors, that is when we will worry about it. So we will worry when there is your child has now passed the cutoff age, and that is when the pediatrician starts to get worried. So for example, like I said, crawling, we are never even worried about crawling. But if your child is not walking by 18 months, for example, then I will worry about that. So most babies will walk at 1 year. Okay, just to give you context, most babies walk at 1 year. Some babies will not walk, some babies walk before 1 year, some babies walk at 9 months, 10 months. Some babies will not walk until 14 months, and they are all still normal. So, but the pediatrician will only start to get worried when you pass the 18 months mark. So we give time for those who are a little bit slower to catch up with, and we're still not worried. But by the time 18 months is reaching, we expect everybody to have now walked by themselves. So if your child is not walking at 18 months, that is when we begin to worry. The same thing for neck control. More babies will have the neck control by 3 months. But if your baby doesn't have neck control by 4 months, end of 4 months, then we begin to worry. Sitting, most babies sit with support 5 to 6 months. They sit without support 7 to 8 months. But we will not worry about sitting unless your baby is 9 months old and not yet sitting without support. So we have that range just to give you a context. So you don't need to worry about this baby who is not yet even 7 months old at all. What I want to know is whether your baby can sit. That's all that matters for this age, and you don't need to worry. Okay, Ogochukwu, what is your take on vaccine slowing the development of the child, causing slow development or regression in some babies? Okay, thank you so much for that question. Thank you for asking. What is my take? My take is it is not true. That is a myth. That is false. Okay, this is one of the challenges we are having now because people are beginning to peddle all these false myths, beliefs about vaccine, and that is why some people don't want to go take vaccines, and that is why we're having emergence or re-emergence of vaccine preventable diseases. So please, vaccine does not cause slow development. I am a developmental pediatrician, so I should definitely know about that. That's my field, and I can tell you very correctly and frankly that no vaccine causes slow development. Okay, I know that because I know a lot of parents were worried about this. The time people were worried about MMR and worried about autism, and MMR, people think MMR is what is causing autism and all that. That is not true. We've been able to um we've been able to disband that lie. We've been able to come up to say it is not true. Research has proven that it's not true. Unfortunately, sometimes it's difficult for people to go back on when the lies are spread so far. But I will tell you why I also know it's not true. So I have some of my patients whose parents did not give them those vaccines because they are worried that their children are going to have slow development and their children are going to have autism, because they thought, okay, the other child will give the child MMR and all that. That's why the child has autism or slow development. And so they didn't give these other children, the second child or whatever, and they still have the autism and they still have the developmental delay. So definitely it's not the vaccine that is causing it. So it is not a vaccine issue. Children have slow development. Children can have regression, especially children who have autism, and autism has absolutely nothing to do with the vaccine. I've seen parents who give their children vaccines and their children have autism. I've seen parents who did not give their children vaccines and their children still have autism. So it has absolutely nothing to do with vaccine. Please, vaccines protect children against killer diseases. Okay, we're talking about things that can kill the child. Developmental delay, regression, vaccines do not cause them, but even those ones will not kill the children. But what will kill the children are what vaccine protects against. So we're talking about measles, we're talking about meningitis, we're talking about things like tuberculosis, hepatitis. These are killer diseases, okay? And so please, we should not joke around with things that can kill our children because we are worried about things that will not kill them, which is not even true because we know that vaccines do not cause slow development. Vaccines do not cause regression. Okay, I know a lot of parents who will tell me, "Oh, I'm not going to take the vaccines until my child is 2 years old," because they are worried about all these kind of beliefs and lies that the no vaxxers are spilling around. And at the end of the day, the children still have these developmental issues. So it has nothing to do with the vaccines. Most of those issues are either genetic or they are due to other issues that happen during pregnancy, during delivery, and all that, but definitely not the vaccine. So please um, don't deny your children of immunization. They are life saving and they do not cause developmental delay or regression. Okay. Instagram people, I'm with you. Please ask your questions as well. All right. Okay. So Chinaza say there is a what can I take to increase breast milk? All right. So breast milk is actually a demand and supply economy. The more your baby breastfeed, the more you produce breast milk. It is not a take like you have to take a particular drug or this or that. No, the most important thing to do is to have that mindset, because I always tell mothers that breast milk is produced in your brain, not even in your breast. Okay, what I mean by that is that there are hormones that regulate breast milk production. And so anything going on in the brain will affect how you produce breast milk. So if you are worried, anxious, you're going to produce stress hormones. And stress hormones inhibit or slow down breast milk production. Whereas um if you are relaxed, you're not stressed, then all the good, lovely hormones that stimulate breast milk production will be produced. So I always tell you, rest, relax, eat normally. Though this is not the time to fast or time to try to get back your tummy or try to get back your. I'm not saying you should not exercise. I'm just saying that that's not the time to start going on diet when you're breastfeeding. No. So eat normally, not eat for two. Eat normally, drink a lot of water, and just keep putting your baby to the breast. The more your baby suck, the more the milk will be produced. Most mothers are not that struggle with lactation. Most of it is because of the anxiety level, the stress level is so high because, oh, I don't think I can do it. Maybe I should go and buy formula. Maybe my child is going to starve. Da, 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 da. And the more you worry, the more you are anxious about those things, the more you actually produce stress hormones and the less breast milk you produce. Whereas if you just relax and know, I got this, I got it, you can, because you can actually produce more breast milk for your baby than your baby actually needs. So, some people have a lot of what we call anecdotal um stories. In other words, these are not things based on research. Just people say, oh, if I take pap, I produce more milk, or if I drink kunu, I produce more milk. But we don't, please don't take alcohol, don't take palm wine, don't take alcohol, because we don't want alcohol getting into the babies and getting to the breast milk. So if you think, oh, if I eat this food, some people believe all those and it works for you, it's fine, you can, but we don't recommend any of those per se. What we recommend is eat normally, drink a lot of water, and let baby suck frequently and on demand. And when baby is doing that, then your breast milk is going to keep flowing. All right. If you want more information on breast milk production, we have a guide section in our Facebook group. We call it guide section. We call it the guides. There's a one on breastfeeding. We have lots of videos that you can watch. There's actually a particular video on how to increase your breast milk supply. How to increase your breast milk supply. I absolutely recommend that you watch all those videos on breast milk, and the one on how to increase your breast milk supply will be helpful for you, especially. But what I've told you is actually the gist of how to increase your breast milk supply. All right. So, don't have any question on Instagram, please ask a question. If you ask a question and maybe it has run off and I didn't see it, feel free to repost that question and forgive me, because I'm always having to check Instagram intermittently because your own comments disappear. All right, you're asking whether you can take Subo. I'm not. I don't think there's any problem if you want to take it. I don't see. It's made from hibiscus flower and all that, but just be careful. Make sure you're not taking something that they've added alcohol and all that. That's my main concern. With only pregnant women, we don't want them taking Subo and all that, because it can risk of premature labor and all that. But I don't think there's any issue with breastfeeding mothers. But please just make sure at least you drink water and not, alcohol. So, but most importantly, ensure that your baby is sucking. All right, I have a question on Instagram. Finally, more global properties. Okay. Good evening, ma. My son is 11 months old. Can he take Checkers custard? Yeah, your baby can take any custard. I don't promote any particular brand. Okay, most of the so-called Nigerian custard is actually just pap that is made in an industrial kitchen. That's it. There's nothing special about it. Most of them is just the same maize. They just make pap and dry it up, and then they have some coloring to it. That is all. Just read what is the content. So that is, and the issue then is also have to be careful of all the all the colorings, all the additives, whereas if you make your own pap, most likely, because they have to preserve it so that you can buy it dry. Whereas if you make your own fresh in your own kitchen, you don't have to add anything to it, and that is more, I guess, healthier than the one in the industrial kitchen that has to be preserved. But um, it is fine for you um to give your baby custard. So, and more importantly, it's not just custard that your child should be taking. Your child should take variety. So we also want to make sure you're giving your child fruits, you're giving your child vegetables, you're giving your child protein, things that has whether animal protein like egg, like fish, like chicken, meat, and you're also giving plant protein like beans and granules and all that. So just make sure that you're giving variety. If you need more information on how to feed your child, how to go about complementary feeding, so go to our Facebook group. We have a guide section on complementary feeding, and there are lots of videos, again, just like the one for breastfeeding. There's one on complementary feeding. The global health media videos, very lovely. They tell you what to feed your child, how to feed your child, how often to feed your child, how to the different classes of food that you need to give and all that. So make sure you are doing, you can get more information from that, but there's nothing wrong with giving custard. All right, I hope that's helpful. All right. I'm not getting a lot of questions on Instagram all of a sudden. Omolora Ola, please, what makes a 3-year-old to always make a blood drop to 28 when having malaria and infection? Yeah, if you have a malaria, your blood level will drop, because if you understand what happens in malaria, so the malaria parasite enters the red blood cells. So malaria parasite enters the red blood cells, and the malaria parasite damages the red blood cells. So each time the child is having that fever, they start shaking, it is because the malaria uh, parasite has broken the red blood cells and released what we call some toxins into the blood. So that is why when people have malaria, the red blood cells level will go down, because that is what malaria actually attacks. It attacks the red blood cells. All right. So the question you should be asking is, why is your own child having malaria and infection? So we should focus on preventing the malaria, preventing the infection, so that the red blood cells will not go down. That is number one. Then number two, you also need to make sure there are no other reason your child's blood level is low, because though malaria could be a reason, but there are other causes of low blood level, what we call anemia. So it could be iron deficiency. If the child is not eating enough food that has iron, then the child can also have low blood level. Some children could have sickle cell anemia, for example, and their blood level will be low. So you need to make sure you've done the child's genotype. There are other conditions, GCPD deficiency and all that. But that is the job of your pediatrician, so who is seeing your child. It's not enough for them to do the level of the blood to know that the blood is low. They also need to know why. So this part, so of course, malaria, like I said, could be an explanation. So maybe that's why they didn't bother. But if it's always happening, then you need to ask them to do further investigation. They can check the iron level and all that. Then they will know why the child's uh, PCV is low. I hope that is helpful for Molara. And if the blood level is low, and they may need to also treat it so that the level can come up. For example, if it's iron deficiency, we can give iron. If it is folic acid deficiency, we can give folic acid. They will treat. Well, just make sure you ask your own doctors this question so that they can, if there are more information on why your child's blood level is low, apart from the malaria itself, then they can also tell you that. All right. And Damilites, cakes, and events. Good evening, Doc. My 1 year baby boy, 11K. Is it 11 kg you want to write? As of last month, I see stain of blood in his pool. I really didn't know what caused that. Yeah, it is not normal for a child to have blood in their stool at any time. You should, so if you see blood in your child's stool, that same day you need to get to the hospital. So there are many reasons why children could have blood in their stool. It could be that they are bleeding on the inside. So if the child is bleeding on the inside along the what we call the digestive pathway for any reason, then they can have blood. Sometimes some children are not bleeding from the inside, but they have what we call constipation. The stool is so hard. So in the process of passing the stool, they actually they tear some parts of the anus, or and that can also cause blood to come into the stool. So you need to know which of them. Even if the child is bleeding from the mouth, the blood can also go down into the intestine and come out with the stool. So you will need all those information. So but you really need to, okay, 11 kilos, okay, thank you. So you need to take the child to this hospital. First, we need to confirm it is blood, because it's not everything that looks red that is blood. So we will do a they do a stool test. They can actually test the stool for blood. And if they confirm it is blood, then we need to know, where is the blood coming from? Is it coming from the hop, from the mouth, the stomach, esophagus, or is it coming lower down from the anus? If a child has watery stool, for example, they can also have dysentery. Dysentery is when you have watery stool with blood. You didn't tell us whether the stool is watery or hard or normal. So, because all this information are important to help us know where the blood is coming from. So we need to confirm first whether there's blood, and then we need to know where the blood is coming from, or is it part of another infection like dysentery. But whichever way, it is never normal. It is never normal for a child to have blood in their stool, and you must take that child to the hospital. Okay, so it is not watery. If it is not watery, then that means it's not dysentery, and then but you still need to know where the blood is coming from. Is the child bleeding somewhere? So that is very important. All right, our time is going quickly. Let's come back to Facebook. Vivian, say good evening, doc. My baby is on EBF. She's not chubby. Okay, what is the weight of the baby? Best weight is 2.7, 6 week 4.7, 10 weight 5.8. The baby's weight are fine. Okay, we are not interested in baby being chubby or not chubby. What we're interested in is the weight of the child being healthy weight or not. And I'm very happy that you've given me the weight of this child. So your baby is 2.7 kilos and your baby is already weighing 5.8, which is actually, the baby has already doubled his birth weight. Is it a boy or a girl? Oh, she's a girl. So your baby has already doubled the birth weight at 10 weeks. Usually I expect the baby to double at 6 months. Okay, maybe you should double the birth weight at 6 months. So I don't know what you're looking for. This baby is even already, the weight is above what we expect for this child's age. Please stop over putting pressure on yourself or on your baby, and baby don't have to look fat. Too much weight is actually not good for the baby as well. Okay, we want the baby to have healthy weight, not necessarily looking fat and chubby and looking so overweight. Most of those babies that you will think are chubby are actually overweight babies. All right, so just keep breastfeeding your baby exclusively. Okay, your baby's weight is more than okay for the baby's age, so which is what is more relevant to us, and that is more objective than how the baby looks. We look at the weight. You weigh the baby. Your baby is already gained double his birth weight, double her birth weight. So at 3 months, when we expect the baby to actually do that at 6 months. So we are not worried about this baby's weight. So just keep breastfeeding your baby exclusively. Okay, so your baby's weight is fine. All right, Eze say rashes on my baby's neck. You have seen a doctor. Good. Treatment was given. Good. Still, it didn't clear. Then you have to go back. So whenever you see a doctor and we treat your child and your child is not better, please come back to us. There are many reasons why that can happen. Okay. just go back to the same doctor. And you say, what could be the cause? The person that can answer that question is the person who is treating your child. You have not seen the rash your child. So you've seen it, one of my colleagues. So they are treating your child. That question, you should have asked that question day one that you took the child to the hospital. Whenever you go to the hospital, there are questions you must ask your doctors before you leave. What is wrong with my child? What is causing what is wrong with my child? How do I treat it? How do I know? What do I do if the child is not better? You must always ask those 4 questions before you leave. You must have the answers to those questions before you leave. If you don't have the answer to those questions, then you have not really achieved a consultation. It's going to a hospital is not just for your doctor to write something and you leave. You must know what is wrong. Why is this thing wrong? Because you want to know how to make sure it doesn't happen in the future. And then the doctor will tell you, this is how am I going to treat. Is this something I need to treat? Sometimes we don't need to treat. Sometimes we just wait for it to go by itself. So it's not everything we treat. But if we are going to treat it, we will tell you this is how we treat it. Even the drugs we are giving you, we need to tell you the side effects to watch out for. And then we must tell you when to come back. There is always follow up. So sometimes things don't get better. We expect things to get better sometimes, but we know that things may not get better. And so that's why we tell you come back in 2 days, in 3 days, in 1 week, in 2 weeks. We always tell you when to come back. So please, you have to go back to the doctors and then they will be able to uh, tell you what is going on. Maybe the treatment is not the right treatment, or maybe the particular drug they gave didn't work for your child for any reason, and we need to try a different drug, and all that. So you have to go back to your doctor. You said the rashes is bringing out pores or what's that? So if the rashes is bringing out pores, that sounds like an infection. That sounds like a bacterial infection. So I don't know what treatment your doctor gave you, but that's most for bacterial infection, most likely will give antibiotics, and the antibiotics have to be given for a certain number of days. Most of them 5 days, some is 7 days, some is even 2 weeks, so even more. And then more importantly, for this kind of infection, prevention is key. You also need to pay attention to prevention, washing your hands with soap or water, paying attention to hygiene around the baby. Those are very important things to do as well. So that is what uh, uh, that is just to give you information. All right. So, but the most important thing for is a faith. You have to take the child back to see the same doctor and let them know that your child is not better. You didn't tell us how long you choose the treatment for anyway, but you can still go back to your doctors. So, Amadi Ngozi, greetings, doc. My baby of 7 months is always hot. When I check the temperature, it's 36.8. Then your baby is not hot. Okay, 36.8 is a normal temperature. And that's actually why we have a thermometer. Because parents will say my baby is hot. But we use a thermometer. Thermometer is more objective, is correct. Unless your thermometer is 40, which you can actually go get another thermometer and check again. But if the thermometer is saying 36.8, that is not hot, that is normal body temperature. So and like I always tell mothers, our hands are not reliable. Your hands are not reliable. That's why we have to rely on thermometer. If not, we don't need a thermometer. We just be using people's hand. But we all know that hands are not reliable, so we rely on a instrument that will tell us the correct thing. So if the instrument is telling me 36.8, I'm going to believe the instrument and not your hand, unless you are going to convince me that the instrument is faulty. So what you need to do is to get another thermometer and check again. If the thermometer is still saying 36.8, then you can actually go to the hospital, let them use their own thermometer there to check it. You know, if it's normal, then that is normal. So you can't rely on your hand then, because, and it's some of us, if your hand is hot yourself, if you are hot yourself, if you touch somebody else, within the person is hot, but you are the one that is hot. So, and please don't overdress your baby, because some of us, we overwrap this baby so much, like breeze, air must not enter inside their body. All those things are not true. Okay, dress will be according to the weather. So if the weather is hot, you wear lighter clothes, cotton clothes. If the weather is cold, then you wear thicker layers for the children. But if your thermometer is reading 36.8, that is a normal temperature. Normal body temperature is 36.5 to 37.5. Anything less than 37.5 is not fever. Okay, so, and that means the baby is not hot. So you don't have to worry and you don't need to do anything. There is absolutely no problem because the temperature is normal. But if you think, okay, maybe I'm having a 40 thermometer, you can do a double check. You can take a baby to an health center or any of your nearby clinics. They can use a thermometer for you there, and they can tell you whether, if their own is also less than 37.5, then there is no problem. Maybe you need to change your thermometer, or maybe you need to check yourself that you are not the one that is odd. All right. So I think I've answered all the questions that I have in front of me today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to be um, rounding off. We have just 1 minute on the program. Just to remind you that this is immunization week. We started since last week. Please and please take your children for immunizations. All right. Please don't follow all the negative false stories about immunization. Immunization saves lives. Immunization protects our children from all these killer diseases, tuberculosis, meningitis, hepatitis, even cancers like cervical cancer. So please ensure that you get your immunization card. Check that your children have taken all their vaccines. If there are any missing, please, please, and please just walk into any of the health centers, show them the immunization card, and tell them my child mixed this particular vaccine, and they will give you. There are some vaccines we will give. There are some vaccines that, well, maybe it's no longer needed, but please go to the hospital first and we will sort it out. And please, if you have any questions on immunization, please, please, please make sure you ask us. And luckily, we're going to have malaria vaccine. And we actually have malaria vaccines now, and it's going to be introduced to Nigeria very soon. And I think we've already started giving some children already. So it's going to be for the younger babies so that we can protect them against malaria. So that's another additional vaccine that we're going to be adding to our list of routine vaccines. We also give some vaccines as supplementary vaccines. For example, I mentioned polio. We're trying to get rid of polio for good. So sometimes we just go around and give children additional doses, what we call supplementary. That is separate from the routine. So the fact that your child has taken the routine immunization does not mean you should not take the supplementary, the immunization that we give as extra. So make sure your children take them as well. So let's work together. Let's protect our children against vaccine preventable diseases. So I'll be talking about immunization on Thursday to round up the immunization week. So if you have any questions about immunization, feel free to send it to our Facebook group. I will try and collect some of them and I will try and address them and also give you an update because immunization keep changing. So we have an update on our immunizations in Nigeria. So for those of us in Nigeria, so watch out for that so you know the new updated version of our national immunization schedule. So I'll be talking about that on Thursday. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you still have questions that you still bothering you, no worries. Please go to our Facebook group, Ask the Paediatrician Facebook group. We're there Mondays to Saturdays. Feel free to post your questions there, and myself, my colleagues, will try and answer your questions as soon as possible. Of course, if it's an emergency, please, 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 please take the children to the hospital for emergencies where my colleagues will be there to address the children. But if it's just health information, health education, feel free to ask. And if you want to be part of our outreaches, feel free to support us. We are doing the first aid projects, empowering children in secondary schools on what to do for first aid in emergencies. And I think it has really been well received. So watch out for us in a school next to you very soon. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. Have a wonderful evening, and it is bye. Bye-bye.